Hi everyone, welcome to another Creative English Club meeting. Today we're going to be talking to someone who has been in advertising for over a decade and has made his career from Brazil to North America. So let's get started. Welcome everyone, and before we introduce our guests for today, I'd like to introduce myself and all the moderators that are going to be here asking our guests some questions. And feel free, everyone who's watching, to send questions in the chat as well. So you can just comment, and we're going to bring your questions here for our guests. So first of all, I'm Mari, and I'm usually the host for our Creative English Club meetings. I am a marketing professional, and I've recently graduated here in Canada as well. So I'm going to be speaking from the same country as our special guest for today. And without further ado, I'd like to call in Helena so she can introduce herself.
Hi everyone, I'm Helena and I'm a content coordinator and copywriter, and I'm based here in São Paulo. I'm very happy to be in here in this meeting. It's not my first time in Creative English Club, but I know that every meeting is very nice and we have a lot of chat and discoveries from each other. Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Helena. And next up, Rodriguinho, if he can come in and introduce himself.
Hello, guys. Hello, everyone. Have a nice day. I am Rodriguinho. I'm living in Curitiba. I am a copywriter, and I make part of the Creative Club 1 year up to now. And a pleasure be here again and for the next count with me. And let's go make this new kind of seasons of interviews for the Creative Club. So let's go.
Awesome. Thank you, Rodriguinho. And next up, Thiago.
Hi guys, nice to meet you all. First time here. My name is Thiago. I'm a copywriter from Campinas, São Paulo. I'm very excited to be here and also happy. So let's go.
Thank you. Next up, Julio.
Hi. My name is Julio. I'm creative director based in Fortaleza. So it's my first time here, so it's gonna be good. It's gonna be fun. And also a fan of Harry Potter that I saw that Cadu is also too. So it's gonna be fun.
Nice. And last but not least, we have Lucca.
Hi guys, nice to meet you all. My name is Lucca. I'm a creative copywriter based in São Paulo. It's my first time here. I'm a little bit shy, but I'm so excited. It's going to be so cool. So nice to meet you all.
Thank you. And for everyone who's watching for their first time, these lovely people are just throwing themselves out there to practice their language skills and ask your guests some questions. And they're all very brave for stepping forward and doing this, because I know that a lot of people who don't have English as their first language can be very self-conscious about it. But we're here to prove that there is no reason to, that as long as you practice, everything is going to be great. And we are communicators, right? So it's only right that we're here and practicing our communication skills. Let's introduce our guest for the day, who is Cadu. Come on in, Cadu, and introduce yourself.
Hey there, how's it going? I'm Cadu, and I think I'll talk a little bit more about me as we go. So I won't say much, but I'm also from Fortaleza. I arrived in Canada 5 years ago-ish, so it's been a while, and it's been a lot of fun, and I think we'll go through as we speak. But very excited to be here. This is my first Creative English Club. Thank you for the invite. I think that's going to be really cool. And yeah, let's make the best out of it. Let's go.
Amazing. And thank you so much for accepting your invitation again, Cadu. And yeah, like you said, everyone has already had access to your bio and everything. So let's not stick to professionalism here and talking about portfolio. Everyone can check out your socials later as well. We're going to have them all linked at the description. So we really want to bring here a lot of cultural exchange, and the more we can talk about like cultural differences and things like this, I think it's going to be the greatest value that we can bring to this meeting here as well. So I'm going to get started on some questions for you, and then all our moderators are also going to have some questions.
Sounds
So
good.
first, I'd like you to walk us over what's a day in the life of Cadu. Very influencer-like, but can you just walk us over what a day in your agency looks like?
Okay, it depends on the day right now, because after COVID, we stopped going to the agency, and now we're starting to come back. But it's kind of like you go when you want. So I still love working from home, and that really depends on the day. I really try to go in every Tuesday and Thursday because that's when my copywriter partner also likes to go in, and that's usually when our creative directors are there. So we know we can bug them a little bit more to to get our shit made. Sorry to have said shit. I think I will say a bunch of bad words in this call, but that's just how I speak. But yeah, usually, so again, it depends on the day, but mostly I think even if I'm working from home or if I'm there, I'm talking to my copywriter most of my day. I think we had a really strong relationship from the beginning. We started working during the pandemic together. I had another copywriter previous to him, but when we started working, we didn't know each other for like 3 months. But after we started talking, and we all saw like, oh hey, we like video games and we like the same kind of shit and we like great ideas, right? So I think we got along really well. So we're talking all the time, pretty much. If it's not on camera, but we're like texting each other all the time during the work day. And it really depends on the projects we're working on, right? There's a few days where it's a bit more chill, and I don't really have quite a lot to do. At first it was very weird when I didn't have enough to do, because coming from Brazil where everything was always so on the go, and you have to be working and you have to be doing stuff all the time. I think coming from there, it was a bit weird when I didn't have anything to do and I asked for more projects, and they were like, "No, it's coming. Just take some time to chill." And that to me was like, "Oh, am I getting fired?" It just felt weird. But then I got used to it, and it's really awesome. Like I think now I know how to enjoy myself when I don't have anything to do. But there's also the times when I have a lot, and this year has been really busy so far because we just launched a big campaign. We're trying to get that to go to Cannes, so it's been really like a rush throughout the year from the very beginning since January. But it really depends. It depends on the project. Again, it depends on what we're working on. If we're brainstorming, it's a different pacing. If we're producing some work, it's a different pacing. If we're shooting, it's a completely different pacing. So it really depends on the day. But I think that's one of the things I really like about advertising, right? It's not knowing what's next and not knowing how the next day is going to be and what we're going to be working on. One day I might be talking about cheese. One day I might be talking about um, indigenous rights, and it really varies a lot. So that's a cool part of it. It's hard to make plans, to be honest, because I never know if I'll be like really busy, if I'll be tired or not by the end of the day. I think in the beginning, especially when you just arrive in a new country and you're speaking English all the time, your head gets a lot more tired, and I had like headaches all the day, and it was really bad. But nowadays, I think I got used to it, so it's been better. I don't know if I answered your
Awesome.
question.
Yeah, you totally did.
Thank
And
you.
you tackled a lot of things, so that's great. You even tackled my next question that would be like, I saw that you have a joint portfolio with your copywriter partner, so that's
Mhm.
awesome. And I was like, it's so nice to see when you clearly have like a bond and a partnership that goes like beyond like working every day. You're clearly like proud of working together, so that's great. I was gonna ask if it was like love at first work or like first job, you know?
It wasn't.
That's good to know because you grew into it.
Yeah, no, for sure. It really wasn't. I think like when we first talked, we were like, "Hey, this is a very nice person." So it was very nice talking to him. But I think the minute we started working, I'm like, "Oh, I don't know if this is gonna work really well." I think it was just like the project we were in, we didn't really agree that much on what we were doing. But I think in the second project that we had, we already hit it off, and that's when it really started making sense to us. I think the first project just wasn't very good, maybe, but I think one thing that's very important to me in that relationship is we're friends beyond work. Like we go out together, we watch UFC together. We're going to see the Raptors playing. That's the basketball team here, if someone doesn't know. And then we're seeing things together, and we're going out, and we're talking about a lot more than just advertising, right? Like we're both nerds, so like when the Sunday comes, we'll be talking about the next Last of Us episode. There's a lot more happening there than just talking about advertising all the time. And I think that matters. I think that makes great creative. That makes great thinking. It's just like knowing that we have these multiple interests. He's a bit more of a sports person. I'm a bit more of a nerd, and that changes things as well. So it's really interesting.
That's so nice, and I love the dynamics. Like, I feel like you guys, it's nice to see like how you contribute to one another, even like in your special interests, because that comes hand in hand with advertising and where inspiration comes from, right?
Yeah.
So that's so cool to hear. And also something very interesting that you mentioned is like about getting headaches over like talking English, like the whole day. I got that when I got an office job in Toronto, because I was like, oh damn, like this is what it actually feels like when you have no one to turn to and like speak like your native language with. Because for a while I worked in a store with other Brazilians like still in Canada, so for me it was like okay, but sometimes I'll take breaks from English with them, and when I was like in an office I couldn't do that, and it's just so exhausting. So it's very important for us to understand that like language goes so much beyond like knowing grammar and vocabulary and things like that. It's just getting your brain used to it. So that's a very interesting point of view that you brought there. And I'm gonna close off on my end for now and ask Helena to ask her question.
Hi. Well, you gave us a great how can I say, introduction from yourself. And my question that I have already prepared, I guess you told a little bit, you kind of already answered it, but I have to answer to do it for you. So, well, it's been a while that I've been in Canada, but is there something that still amazes you or take you out of your comfort zone when you're working with your Canadian peers?
Yeah, all the time. There's things I think I don't know if I'll never get used to, but I complain a lot to my copywriter. That's something. The way they do things here is different. It's very different from Brazil. I know I spoke to like things being sometimes I have nothing to do, which is very different already. But sometimes we have a lot. So but the way they do things here, it's like we have a lot more time. And originally I thought this would be better. But then at some point I was like, so we only do 1 or 2 or 3 campaigns a year? That's it? And like we have a lot of smaller projects, banners, posters, any of that kind of stuff. But big campaigns, we only really do a few, and that's it. Like it would take a long time. There's like a lot of research. There's a lot more involved than I was used to back in Fortaleza, which I was like,
it's not the Brazilian way to work.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. There's things that are like, it just takes a lot longer to get to where I want to. When I'm like, I know where this is going. Please just let me go there. So the pacing is very different, and it bothers me still to this day. I think one other thing, and that's very specific to art direction, is everything I do here, every little piece of design or detail I put in the layout, I have to explain that. And in Brazil, at least in Fortaleza, I was like used to making things beautiful. If like, of course, there's an insight, there's an idea behind the bigger concept there. But if I want to put a little bit of a detail here just to make things a bit more pretty, that wouldn't be a problem. While here, every time I try doing something like that, they'll be like, "Why is this here?" And they always point to the things I added in purpose, and they're like, "Why is this here?" And I'm like, "Just to make it more beautiful." I try to bullshit and answer it, but like most of the times they ask me to remove that, which I don't really love. I'll be honest. It makes me miss a little bit of the Brazilian art direction, which I was like, oh yeah, I can just make things for the sake of being pretty. So these are things that are constantly there, and I'll always complain about it. To be honest, um, my copywriter does hear a lot about it. I'll speak to another thing that has nothing to do with advertising. I complain about their burgers. I really love burgers, and there's been no burger here in Canada so far that has really got me like happy to be eating that. And it was the whole agency kind of knows that, and they try to tell me like, oh, go to this place, go to this place, and I'm always like, no, you guys don't know how to make burgers. That sucks.
That's hilarious. Especially
Yeah,
because you're in Toronto, right? You're Toronto based.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's like the city in Canada you're most gonna find like different places to go. That's amazing.
I know, and I've tried in different places. I went to Ottawa and I tried burgers. I went to Quebec and I tried burgers. It's not just in Ontario. It's really like everywhere. So yeah, these are things that I'll never get used to. I think the whole notion that like, and I don't know how it is in Brazil now because throughout the whole pandemic, I was here, right? So, but the whole notion that like everything we have to have a meeting, there's a lot more meetings than a lot more doing. I think that was something I wasn't used to. Now I think I like that sometimes. I dislike that when I really just want to do things. And then it really depends. Did I answer your question?
Sure.
Awesome.
And now I'm interested in how do you like your burger?
So there's burger places, and I can only speak to Fortaleza. There's burger places in Fortaleza that are really really good, and I can't express how good they are, but like here they're just nowhere near when you bite
No,
into
no, no.
it.
This is homesick burger.
It's not really. I'm I'm telling you the truth. It's really bad. And I like in my head I had the feeling that like, oh, North Americans, they know how to do burgers, right? Like it's a part of their culture, but they don't.
I imagine a crab burger like from Bob Sponge.
Yep, it's kind of like that. It's really bad, man. I'll be
Oh,
honest.
pretty much. This is so funny to me because I'm not like a huge meat person. So for me, like I eat burgers from Costco. Like I just buy the frozen burgers and I do it at home and they're fine. Like I don't really mind it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like the meetings and everything. Like those are a lot of cultural differences that I think they might be like less North America focused and more like Brazil focused on our perspective, just because we're so driven by our workload. Like there's so much to do all the time. Everything is so late all the time, which is something that doesn't often happen. Like here, I guess, and it must be like this in other countries too. I've dealt with people from like the UK that feel the same way. If something is beginning to get delayed, they'll delay the due dates and then they'll pace the project. And in Brazil, it's like, oh, it's late. Too bad. You're gonna work over hours and you're gonna make it work. So it's a very like different perspective in that way. But thanks for sharing that. And I think next up to ask a question would be Rodriguinho.
Yeah, this is so nice for me because last year I tried middle of the year try to go work abroad. I make some interviews, send my portfolio and other things like that, but it's more complicated than I imagined before because we need the green card and the other things. So I make for a while I stopped this idea and I try to go São Paulo for there, make a new contactions, new network, and then for there try again. It's go to United States or Canada or other countries. So my question, it's not about this, it's not related to this, but I love make this question when I have the possibility because I think it's a person thing and it's totally different the people by people person by person. So for me, how is your creative process? Because my process is so chaotic, it's a mess, but every time it works to me. I don't know what yours kind of process creativity.
Uh, yeah, that's a great question. My process is also a mess, which to a point that I don't think I have a process, but I probably do. I'll try to remember the things I do, but I feel like every time it's a bit different as well. Depends on the brief, depends on how excited you are to work on that, right? So there's sometimes when I'm being briefed and I have like a notes document here on the side where I'm just like typing the very first things that come to mind, even if that's like zombies chasing a person, like whatever comes to mind, I'll be like, that's it. And then I'll type a bunch of random notes. Later, when I look at those, sometimes they don't make sense. Um, it really depends. But yeah, I'll type all the things that come to mind. I'll type some campaigns that thing reminds me of. So lately we had a brief where like the whole brief really reminded me of the new Levi's campaign that they did for their 50th anniversary. It really depends on like how much how much into it you know or not, right? So when I was being briefed, I'm like, oh, that's the same brief pretty much, which makes me think I have to do something very different. Um, but that's usually how I start. Sometimes if I have an idea right away that I'm really excited about, I'll text that to my copywriter while we're in the meeting, while we're being briefed. Sometimes I'll they'll go through the whole brief and I won't have a single clue about what to do next. So they send me the brief. I'll read through it. I'll ask if my copywriter has something. Sometimes he texts me back something. And usually, what we like to do in the beginning is like we each both go our separate ways, and we go and we do our own research and we talk. Like we see things out there. One great thing about Taxi is that we have access to Love the Work, the Can archive. So it's like it's a great place for inspiration because all the work there is great. So we usually go there, but sometimes we get inspiration from other things, like we're even something we're watching or something we've seen in our lives, and like it's really just that beginning of like trying to put together what the ask is and what you have to answer for and how to make that interesting in a way that like that we want to make that, right? As I said, things here take a long time. So if I put forward an idea that I'm really not 100% there with, I'll have to work on that shit for a long time. So I don't really want that. So we try to only put forward the things we really believe in and the things that we really want to produce. Of course, after a few rounds, we might go to what the client wants to make. That happens here too. Um, but we really just try to get that start like separate, and then we jump on a call and we talk. Sometimes when we're separate, we will think of something and I'll be like, hey, what do you think of this? And then he'll be like, yeah, that's amazing. um One thing here as well is like we always have to come with multiple ideas. So it's like the thing is, if they asked us for three, we give them 10. And it's always that of like, originally in the very beginning when we're just giving ideas to our creative directors, we're like, let's just write them down. If I have a visual, of course, like if I have a strong visual that I have to that I have to have a reference for, I'll do something about it. But usually it's just like written, and like we write it down in a Word doc and we take them through and we're like, hey, this is the first idea, it's the second idea, and we take them through the whole thing. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but sometimes in the like second or third day, we'll have a lot more to show. It really depends again on and I know I keep saying that, sorry to say that, but it's like it depends on the brief. It depends on how excited and how much you know about that thing. Sometimes when we're getting briefed about something that we really don't know about, it's more tricky, right? Like it's complicated because you have to learn. I'm trying to remember like an example of something that I had to learn, but like we worked for a cheese company, and we had to learn how to make cheese. Like, we didn't really go out there to make cheese, but we spoke to the person who did it, and there was a whole process of like aging the cheese. The cheese was there for 5 years and everything, and we had to know a lot more about this, which is all very interesting, but it took a while longer to understand. So it really depends. I think once we go and we get like that first gut check of like, do you like those ideas? Usually our creative directors, from those 10, they'll give us 3, 4, or 5 that they like, and then we'll go into like actually trying to see if those can, as we say here, if those have legs, if they can walk on their own, if they have like ways to go, and if they can go further than what we wrote initially. And then like from there, that's when I kind of start to think about like visual references, and I put some mood boards together. Um, but sometimes I'll go right into Photoshop. Right now, I'm actually using a lot of AI to, like, when I have an idea in my head, I try to see what AI gives me, like especially Mid Journey, I think. uh it's worked a few times when, like, not that it does my job for me, but it's like it shows me what a machine thinks of the word reflection, for example. And that's very interesting. That can lead me into different routes when I'm thinking creatively and when I'm thinking about what we're doing next. um, but yeah, it's very, very messy. Again, it's a total different process when we go into production, and that's when we have to choose directors, who's shooting what we're doing, who's bringing our vision to life. That's like it all depends on the kind of job that we're having at that moment. But it's very messy to, to the same point that you said it. Yours is messy and chaotic. Ours is pretty much the same, I would say. I don't know if I have a process. That's my answer.
Yeah, I think this is so nice because you have a strong partnership with your copywriter. You're combined, so this is so important. Sometimes can happen if you don't have idea or have a blank in your mind, and he complete the idea or develop the first insight for the idea, and up to this you started together a building a new idea, a project. So for me, this is I think so nice. I up to now never have something like that. My art directors, every time I went for I work, we sometimes combine it or don't match. But I never have a partnership like you have. So this is so nice for me, and I try one day finding inside of some agency or without in other projects have this partnership. I think this is so nice when some art director and a copywriter building some ideas together, and not just one idea, but year by year, award or award, Cannes and other things like that. You earn together, you won together. It's so nice for me.
Yeah, it's I'll say I'm really lucky. I My first 2 partners here in Canada weren't that good, and that like they weren't that good to the point that they were fired. And I was like worried. I'm like, oh, am I bad? Like, am I doing something wrong? But it's hard. I'll be very honest. It's hard. I think while I was in Fortaleza, I had like one copywriter who I liked working with, and that was it. And like, but even then, like his vision was a lot more on retail that and then like fully creative. He was very creative in retail, but I was
Mhm.
like, I wanted to do big ideas. I wanted to do big
Yeah.
things, and I think it's hard. I'll be honest with that. Like, and then I found a partner at my first agency here that they interviewed a girl, and she was like really nice. She was just starting, and that like it was really nice though. Like, her vision of everything was amazing, and like she's good. And that kind of led me to thinking like, oh yeah, okay, I can work with people who are great in what they do. And we didn't have that kind of partnership that I'm talking about, like with my partner now. It was really we worked together. We're friends, but we didn't really have a lot in common, so we wouldn't like pretty much hang out outside of work or anything, like the way I talked about Dylan. That's the way of my new copywriter. So the way I talked about Dylan. It was really like very work focused, but it was great. It worked well together, and we knew what each other had to do, and we knew our strengths and our like we had each other's back, which feels very good. And I know it's hard. It might feel hard to find someone like that, but just like in any other relationship. But yeah, keep trying. You once you get that, it's really good. It's like someone who gets your vibe and who thinks like
Yeah.
really not even in the same way, but like who takes your thinking further. That's what you're aiming for.
Sometimes complete your thoughts. I think this
Exactly.
is so nice experience also.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank
We
you for your
we
answer.
will say we actually started working recently with a strategist here who we like brainstorming with. So it's like our partnership become a trio because like that other person's just so nice to work with, and he has so many insights into everything like that we're happy to bring more people in as well if we need. Sometimes like I do believe that the whole process of brainstorming, of course there are things you can do on your own, but when you're together it takes it to another level.
So nice. Thank
I
you for
think
your answer.
I think
No
it's so
Yeah.
nice the relation with the strategists. I had this in my oldest agency, and was like so incredible because we made an idea, and he came with a strategy that we can like amplify this idea. So like we can use this media, we can use like this channel, and was like so good and crazy. And he used to think like exactly like me, so it was like a really nice experience.
Yeah, that's really nice when you have someone who's like they have a different mindset than you. You're trying to make creative, right? And they're trying to make sure it works, and they're the brains of it. I would say like even more than us. We're trying to make beautiful and cool stuff while they're like no, I'm trying to ground this work into something that works and that explains and solves a business problem. So that's like something that's really interesting for me when you have that kind of partnership with other departments in the agency.
That's incredible. That sounds like the best of all the worlds, because there's a lot of ideas that are great ideas. They're so creative, but like in reality, they're never going to get approved by a client because the client won't see like the numbers or like where this is going practically, right? Like where the results going to come from. So having the strategy at your back, that seems like the best way to go. And I'd like to pass like the mic now to Thiago so he can ask his question.
Hello. I'm shocked here, still thinking, and how is no good burgers in Canada? This is very crazy because it's so close to the land of the burgers.
Oh,
And
the U.S. also doesn't have good burgers. I'll
oh
say
my
that.
god, no,
Yeah.
no! Now you are
No.
you are already tried like a lot of burgers
A
in.
few, yeah. So like the idea that we have that they have great burgers, their barbecue when ours is picanha, theirs is like burgers, and they don't have good burgers. But the whole thing is like the fast food networks there. I'll say like Five Guys, Wendy's, all that kind of stuff. They're good. They're okay to like a fast food, but not really when it comes to like and I'll say that word in Portuguese, uma hamburgueria. That they don't know how to make
Like
good ones.
comparing with our hamburgueria
Exactly.
concept is like something very different.
Yeah, like they have those here. They have places that are specialized in burgers,
Yeah,
and in the U.S. as well. But like all the ones I've tried,
it's most like always you have a bit of fast food burger, something
yeah,
like that.
exactly. I'll
Oh,
say that.
that's
Yeah.
I already heard about burger circuit. Like there's a USA where you can go to spots and you have like places with a famous burger. I think is in LA or something like that. I don't know, but really crazy.
I'll keep trying. I'll keep trying, but
Keep
I
trying,
I
you
get
try.
disappointed.
Welcome
Nice.
to MasterChef Club.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, and Cadu, I believe going to a different path now in the conversation. I believe that is some of the good advertising in Brazil works well because it reflects the culture and the Brazilian way, as we call, and sometimes even the problems in a funny way. So how can you see the creative paths out there within the social context, and when you come to a developed country, let's say, and link it to this is Canadians used to make jokes with themselves.
Um, I'll okay. Let me try to think through this. I agree. Like the problems here, they feel for us who come from Brazil, like they feel sometimes smaller, let's say, because it's like we. I'll compare two things, and very unfair, but like here in Toronto, at least, you see a lot of homeless people, right? And that was something that surprised me when I got here. You see a lot, like really a lot. And I was like, oh, okay, that's not the idea I had of a bad wording again, but like a developed country, as they like to call themselves. I think that was something that I was like not expecting, and especially like during winter. It's really cold outside, and you see those people there, and I'm like, okay, so they do have a lot of problems like we do. It's not like our problems are unique. It's different though. It is different. If you think of a homeless person here and a homeless person there, they face different challenges. They're there for different reasons. It's very uh like unique in that sense, right? But when it comes to thinking of ideas for social causes, they're open to that. They understand and they see what like other countries are doing, right? So we had this one session by the end of last year. We had this one session at our agency, which we were like every creative person was showing a different campaign that they loved from Cannes, but it couldn't be a Grand Prix and it couldn't be a gold. It had to be bronze or silver. And a lot of those were from Brazil. I'll proudly say that. Um, but it was different because like you see how they care about things, and like I can't speak about the US because it feels different, but here in Canada they do worry about social causes and they do care about it, and it's very nice. It was something that made me think of like, oh, okay, I came to the right place. It was one of the reasons why I came here, just knowing that they care about the things I care about, that like their public health systems, kind of like the SUS in Brazil, and like they do care about those things. I think it was important to me when making that decision. And I'll say that in terms of like the work, when we're talking about social issues, I try to bring a lot of that. I really try to bring a lot of that into the work, because we have access to some nice brands here sometimes. So it's good to do that kind of work, especially when you have more budget for that, right? Like you're giving more back to people. Um, but I try bringing a lot of that. I try because that's something I care deeply for. And whenever you present that kind of stuff, I think it really depends on who's on the other side. Some people will be like, oh, not really into making that, but some people will really embrace what you're trying to do, and you're trying to do some good out there. Um, I'll say like every year at least I try bringing a lot of like, they're mostly pro bono, and by pro bono, if you don't know what that means, it's free work. So we try finding clients and try doing good things for them, because that matters to us. But like it's let me try to see how I can answer that. The short answer is like they do care about that kind of stuff. The problems are different. For example, like um, we're one of the case studies we've been referencing a lot lately here, me and my partner, is the refugee Jatoba from Africa, and that one's great. And like that problem is very different from things that they have in Canada, I'll say. But we also have forests burning here, but for different reasons. It's not for deforestation. It's for like natural causes and like world climate and everything. But they do, the fact that like there's problems everywhere around the world, it makes people care about it. So it's not weird when I try bringing those ideas in. I think we do, like, even if you at some point you look at my book, like there's two of them that are specifically about like causes, certain social causes, and that's the kind of work we try bringing forward. Because I know, like, working for brands, it's awesome. We can do great stuff. They have a lot of budget, but when you work for a good cause and you see it out there and you see like it's something you believe in, you're not just doing it for awards. It's really nice when you see people talking about it, when you see like that your idea matters somehow. It's really nice.
That's very inspiring to hear, and everyone should check out your book and your portfolio and everything. I checked your projects, and I noticed like you can tell that there's a lot of like care about things in your work. So like kudos for that. It's like really amazing, and not really a social cause, but the one you did like for Lego is like was like top 5, like one of my favorites because it was so nice. So yeah, I definitely recommend everyone checking his works out. And yeah, before we get too lost here and lose track of time, I would like to call Julio to ask his question.
Hi. So it's gonna be a little bit more work than your lifestyle there in Canada. So about your campaign, Change the Bills Reconciliation Through the Art. Can you tell us little bit for the process since the beginning of the brief and the brainstorming and the concept, and how that was the real impact of the Canadians when they saw that online or in social medias or on TV? And yeah, that's it.
Okay. Yeah, that kind of goes really well into the previous question, right? Which was social causes. One of the social causes that matters to them here, and also in Brazil. Like, and as I said, they have different problems. So there's indigenous people here, just like we have in Brazil. But one thing, the indigenous people in Brazil are being murdered. The ones here are as well. It's very like there are things that matters, right? So there are these problems and these issues that once you step into that culture, you start seeing them, and you start like when you start seeing all that, you're like, oh yeah, I might try to do something about that. And one thing that from that campaign is like we originally that was a brief for a bank, and we had a client that was a bank, and they were like come up with that was a request that we don't usually get, but they were like come up with things to surprise us, come up with things that might win you awards. They were like really like that, and we tried, we came up with a bunch of stuff. That was one of the ideas. They ended up not doing anything, but we we had that one idea which we really liked, and we were like, yeah, let's keep holding on to that because that's just so smart, right? Like the if you don't know the idea, that's where we uh the faces in the Canadian currency are always like the monarchy or politicians who were very important. They did start to add some more people to kind of like that were important to their culture and history. But if you look when you look at all those faces, there's still a lot of like white men, and we were like, hey, that doesn't feel right. Like you're such a diverse country, and they like to say they're a diverse country, and they are, but it's like let's put someone else there who represents the land, who represents who the country really is, right? Like the the original inhabitants of it. So the idea of having an indigenous woman in there came strong to us because that like we were like even and I'll say that like my copywriter, he's Canadian, and he didn't really hear a lot about any of those women that we talked about in that campaign. But the idea was we were going to reach out to indigenous artists who and give them a canvas of the $20 bill. Why the $20 bill? Because the $20 bill is the one that has the queen's face on it. The queen just passed away. So we were like, okay, they're going to change that as they did in Australia. So they're going to change that, and that's our opportunity to have new faces out there and to kind of like bring that art exhibition to talk about real issues and to talk about the people who are usually marginalized and forgotten in Canadian society. So the way we did that was we sent a blank canvas of the $20 bill to indigenous artists, which was really amazing because all the artwork that came out of it was really cool and very different. and unique sometimes. It's not like the kind of stuff that I was expecting, but it was like different, and it was fresh. It was very different because it's their artwork, it's their style, it's their roots and culture ingrained in what they painted there. Um, and so we did that. We sent that back. We sent that. They sent it back to us, and we had an exhibition with 9 of them originally. There were more that were added after, but and those bills, it really got attention from the people in Canada. Like we showed up in television here. Like people were talking about it in the first day. Like I think 170 articles came out about that one thing, and we were like, wow, okay, that's one idea that we had for a while. We've had these ideas ever since before the Queen passing away. Be honest with that. Like that whole part changed about it being the $20 bill. That changed when she passed away, but it was like massive, and it was weird to see. It was like I wasn't expecting that to happen. To be honest, I'm like, this is just an advertising campaign. Of course, it's going to do some good, but it's but then this thing happened that I'm not even sure if I'm supposed to talk about it. But the Canadian Mint, and I'll translate this word just because like a lot of people didn't know. Mint is Casa da Moeda. The Canadian Mint reached out to us, and we're working with them. That's what I can say. So
Amazing. Congratulations. I'm not surprised at all that it got all the like track that it did, because we hear so much about the indigenous voices of Canada, and I feel like we should and should be like hearing even more. So that's an incredible idea, and I'm so excited to like hear those things that I'm basically like like baby steps. But yeah, really congrats, because that's an amazing initiative.
Thank you. And like I think the greatest part about this idea was like we learned so much. Like I now learned so much about those women, like that have like amazing stories. There's one of them who walked all around the Great Lakes, like carrying a bucket of water to talk about uh water pollution and for their people, because that really mattered to her. There's like so many great things. There's one of them who's like 13 years old, and we all hear about Greta Thunberg, but we don't hear about her. And I'm like, yes, that we should be hearing about those people and learning all those stories and seeing all the different artwork and seeing how much it all came together. It's been really nice.
Amazing. And now I'd like to call Lucca to ask his question.
First of all, congrats for the Change of View project. It's so nice. I saw in your book and I was like amazed. My girlfriend works with ambiental causes and she liked it too, like a lot. Then, but my question is a little bit shorter. It's tell me one idea of another person that you wish was yours idea, and like the difference between the Canadian Brazilian advertising, like in the final product, like not the agents mode. You told me about social causes, but like they cared a lot of that. But I would like to hear more from you.
Cool, for sure. The idea I'd love to talk to you about doesn't exist, because it's something that like I've seen a friend of mine pitching to the agency, and it's a video game idea, and they didn't really make. So I'm not going to talk about that just for their safety. Um, Let me think of an idea I really wish I had made. Let me see. Tricky question there. I feel like I have so many, but at the same time, when you get asked that, you don't really have a lot. I will say all the work for Dove, for the Rio Beauty campaign and the sketches and everything, because again, it goes back to social causes. Sorry for that. I can try to think of something that doesn't go back to that, but it sells a product. It really does. It's like their product cares, or at least like it makes you feel like they care a lot more than all the other brands that are out there who are photoshopping their women and who are doing all that kind of stuff. So it really, like all that work and how they keep improving on it, how they keep bringing that forward every time. Like when the pandemic came, they had the Rio Beauty be like the healthcare professionals wearing masks and like all those things that like all the marks in their faces from wearing a mask all the time. It was like the way that campaign works, it's so good that I'll like it makes me jealous of like how did anyone think of that. That's also a Canadian campaign. It started here. The Like a Girl campaign started here. Like the do things like a girl, like how you fight like a girl, how do you like that whole thing started at Leo Burnett here, which makes me really proud of Canada. um, but that's really something I wish I had done. I'll say other things that are not. I'll try to say other things that are not cause related, but the on the same thing of like Rio Beauty, the Burger King Modi Whopper and the Burger King jersey like that they did for FIFA. I think that was really just smart. And like when I'm seeing that kind of stuff, I'm like, how the fuck do you come up with that? It's so smart. So those were the works I really wish I was like, oh, that's an idea I wish I was there for. Did you have another part of your question, or was that it?
No, it's just like if you know, if you wanna tell me some difference between the final product of Brazilian and Canadian advertising.
Yeah, for sure. I'll say it really depends on what you're talking about. I'll say that like for print, if we're talking posters and print and like visuals, the final product of Brazil is amazing. And a lot of that is like we have a lot of a strong visual culture and we have to make things beautiful. I usually say that like, and I can't speak for all the markets in Brazil, but like in Fortaleza it was like make it beautiful before you make it creative. It's really like it will go out if it's beautiful, but it won't go out if it's just an idea there. If it's not beautiful, it's not going out. So we have that visual culture, which as an art director I really like appreciate, right? And they for them it's really like idea first. And as I was saying, if I want to add one thing just to make it a bit more pretty, but it doesn't really add to the idea or it removes your eyes from the headline that might be the main thing, they'll tell me to remove that. So on print I'll say the Brazilian end result is a lot better. When it comes to film, I'll say the Canadian one is probably better. Um, Not that Brazil doesn't make great film, we do, but I think the way they like here we're so close to production companies that work on big films. Um, I had a transfer session. Again, I'll translate. If transfer session, if anyone doesn't know, it's the coloring section. So it's like when we shoot something, when we film something, we go into a transfer session to color that to add the color palettes that we want and everything. And I once had a color session with the guy who did that same work for Mad Max. And like it's really just impressive on how much they know of like filmmaking, right? Because they're so close to Hollywood. They're so close to the production in America. There's a lot of things on Netflix and Amazon Prime that are shot here. If you think The Boys or Umbrella Academy, I'm just saying all the nerd stuff. But like, if you think of all of that, they're all shot here. They pretend they're not here, but they're all shot in Toronto. There's a lot more shot in Vancouver as well. So it's like because it's so close, they use the film crew here, they use the people who work here to make it cheaper for them to shoot that kind of stuff. So the film work here is really good. I'll say that. So it's a question that like it depends on what we're making. It depends on who's working on that. Sometimes you see work that like uh, it stands out because the art director and the copywriter really know about what they're doing. Sometimes you see work that you're like, okay, that's just okay. The final product's not as finalized as it would be in Brazil, but it depends.
Yeah. It goes out there, right? I've seen so many posters here that I'm like, oh my god, I would never see that in Brazil. Like they would never let this pass.
Yeah.
And it's like from the government too. It's like a big thing, like all over the subway. Like
It's bad. It looks terrible.
Yeah, it's a big difference. But thank you for sharing more of that. We just have one more question from the chat. That is a personal question for you. What kind of music do you listen to over here?
Oh, Okay, so I'll answer that saying moving here made me miss Brazil a lot, which made me listen to a lot more of Brazilian music. um, but I do like to listen to a lot of things. I'll say mostly rock and roll, but I'll be like, I'm open to listening to a lot of things. Um, I think here there's been a lot more rap, which in Brazil I didn't used to listen to, and now like after listening to a lot more here, I was like, oh, let me take a look at Brazilian rap, and then I went to like Emicida, Don Eli, all that kind of stuff. Like, and that was really yeah, Drake. I don't really like Drake, um, but I think like it was it's there's a lot that I listen to nowadays that I didn't used to listen to in Brazil. But I do listen to a lot of Brazilian music recently. But it sometimes as well, and that's like I'll be very honest. I'm so lucky here. We have a lot of concerts, so sometimes I'll be listening to the next concert I'll go, just because I'm getting ready to go see them live, and that's something like I'm very fortunate about. So yeah, it really depends, but it's usually rock and roll. I'll say that.
Nice. I love that. Yeah, it's I speak with other like immigrants that came here, and it's the same experience. Like, damn, there are things that I didn't even used to eat or like listen to or consume when I was in my country, but once like I left, now I'm like, yeah, I miss it.
I miss that.
Yeah. So I think we're good to move on to the final session of our talk here today. So if you're new to Creative English Club, I usually have a slide that I'm typing out while we're talking here, with just a few highlights of like expressions or words here and there that like might be worth pointing out, just so we all like learn something. A disclaimer that I always do is that I'm not an English teacher or a professor or anything like that. I just like love the language, and I think like listening to it and pointing out things together is the way that we can learn. So if we can just pull the slides over here, it's gonna be very quick, I promise. Okay, so first thing, I learned this recently because I was like thinking about this word a lot, but I know that here we always call everyone who from the Red Hook community who comes in here to help ask questions a mediator. I've recently discovered a better word for this might be moderator or mods, as we call them like in English. So both words are usable, but they have different connotations. So a mediator would be more used in the context of a conflict, for example, someone who is actually mediating something and avoiding a sort of conflict. And meanwhile, a moderator is something that we will see a lot of in online spaces. So especially if you're like part of Discord or, like some sort of like digital channel, there will be moderators who will be in charge of being there and making sure everything goes smoothly. So yeah, both are use, but moderator will be more common. Next word, I think we use it a lot to make comparisons between the Brazilian and Canadian market, but pacing. So the pacing of something is basically just going to be the speed, like how fast or how slow it goes. So it's the rhythm, right? The Canadian pacing of projects is much slower than the Brazilian ones. And like just making a connection here, a work-life balance is something that goes hand in hand when we compare pacing of work. I feel like here a work-life balance is something that we're going to hear a lot about when talking about work in general. And yeah, the work-life balance is much better if you're in a country that actually goes slower, because that means that things are not late, you're not doing over hours, and you have like a little more time to balance your special interests in. A sports person, I think you were talking about your partner and you mentioned that, and it's just like I love how moldable like English can be sometimes. So for example, you can use any sort of special interest to put in front of the word person and describe their interests. So a sports person is someone who likes sports. We use a lot cat person versus dog person. That means whether or not you prefer like dogs or cats. And it's just a nice way to describe something about someone that is very used. That is not something like that we will necessarily learn about when we're learning the language, but it's very, very used. And I think this is the last one that I've pointed out before, but it's always nice to remember. Here, we don't call, here, I mean, like, if you're working in English, we're not going to hear briefing as the document. The document will be called brief. period, like just those 5 letters, and briefing will be the verb. So if you're in a briefing meeting, that means that they're briefing you on the new case, but the document itself will be called brief. Oh, there's one more. So having legs, that's something that Cadu like so nicely pointed out and also explained the meaning, but it's basically having potential, right? That means that something will have legs and walk by itself. And that is all. And yeah, I think that brings us to a conclusion. I'd like to thank everyone who is watching, especially Cadu, for joining us for our session, and all our moderators here who have taken the leap into participating. And if you're wondering how you can be here asking our guests some questions, it's very easy. Just be a member of the Red Hook curated community. Be comfortable with speaking English. That doesn't mean your English has to be perfect, but comfortable enough you can join conversation. And that's all. And then you're free to join us. So yeah, Cadu, if you have any last words.
Not really. Just thanks for having me. I think that was really nice hearing from you all, like answering all those questions. Wasn't ready for a few of them, but I think I hope I answered them as nicely as possible. And yeah, it's been really good and like challenging, and just keep pushing, guys, because it's hard to work in advertising even here as well, but it's fun. It's the most fun you can have while working, I'll say.
Amazing. Yes, you did. You brought a lot of value to our conversation. So thank you for answering all questions, and I'll see everyone in our next session. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you so much.
Bye bye, guys.